Aaron Cathy grew up in a Christian home in rural Alba, Texas. Her father, Terry, was a youth pastor. She was born in 1991. That made her 16 when everything began to unravel. Aaron sang in the church choir. She went to a Southwest Baptist camp. Because of ADH, she had been homeschooled for years. Not long before the events, she returned to Rains High School and took a job at a Sonic drive-in. That's where she met Charlie Wilkinson, 18 at the time. Their relationship moved fast. Charlie gave Aaron a promise ring that once belonged to his grandmother. They talked about marriage. But when Aaron's mother, Penny, saw Charlie's MySpace page, filled with profanity and revealing photos, she told Aaron to end it immediately. Once her parents forbade her from seeing Charlie, Aaron made a chilling decision. She believed that if her family were gone, nothing would stop her from being with Charlie. She brought him into the plan along with his friend Charles Wade. Charles's girlfriend, Bobby Johnson, agreed to drive the getaway car. On the night of March 1st, 2008, Aaron and Bobby waited in a car outside Aaron's house. A little after 3 a.m., Charlie and Charles forced their way in. Charlie carried a .22 pistol. Charles held a samurai sword. They first went to Penny's bedroom. A bullet struck her. When the gun jammed, Charles used the sword on her, resulting in fatal neck wounds. Next, they went after the two boys. Matthew, who was 13, was shot. 8-year-old Tyler was struck over and over. Their father, Terry, heard Matthew's screams, "Charlie! Charlie, why are you doing this?" before he was shot 5 times. After that, the three set fire to the house and left. Terry managed to crawl out of the burning wreck. He got help from neighbors. At the hospital, he recognized Charlie's voice and face. Less than 24 hours later, Aaron, Charlie, Charles, and Bobby were arrested at Charles's trailer. Aaron first claimed she had been taken against her will. As evidence mounted, her story fell apart. Charlie later said Aaron had told him she wanted her parents gone. None of the 4 went to trial. They all accepted plea deals. Aaron faced homicide charges. Because of her age and the agreement, she did not face the ultimate penalty. On January 2, 2009, she was sentenced to 2 back-to-back life terms. She can ask for release at age 59 after serving 43 years. Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade received life without any chance of release. Bobby Johnson was given 40 years, with a chance to ask for release after 20 years. The most surprising outcome involves Terry himself. After the act, he thought about ending his own life. He felt torn between seeking revenge and offering mercy. In his memoir, Terror by Night, he writes that when he returned to the burned house, he found a page from one of Penny's devotionals. The page was burned, but still readable. It said, "You're sovereign, you're in control." Those words gave him strength. In court, Terry asked the judge not to impose the ultimate penalty on Charlie and Charles. Today he travels to speak about mercy in churches and prisons. He also visits Aaron regularly, working toward a kind of healing few would imagine possible. Now what drove a quiet 16-year-old to turn his own home into a scene of horror? Colin Jeffrey. C.J. Haney was 16 years old and lived in Grantsville, Utah. He was the 4th of 5 siblings. His mother, Consuelo Alex Haney, was 52. His brothers and sisters were Alexis, Matthew, Milan, and Danny, who was away at university. Colin was quiet and struggled with severe anxiety. He had recently switched from homeschooling to public school and had never been in legal trouble. On January 17, 2020, Colin stayed home from school. He got 2 handguns ready and hid extra bullets around the house. At about 1 p.m., when his mother and youngest sister Milan came home from a school run, Colin met them at the front door with a gun. Neither survived. He waited. Near 2 p.m., 15-year-old Alexis arrived home. Colin followed her inside. He fired 5 shots at her head and chest. She did not survive. After a pause, around 5:17 p.m., Matthew returned from a birthday party. Colin used his gun on Matthew once, aiming at his head. Matthew did not survive. His father came home around 6:15 p.m. Colin shot him in the leg. They struggled over the gun for about an hour. Colin Sr. was struck in the head but managed to wrestle the weapon away. A neighbor arrived, helped the father, and drove them both to the hospital. Police arrested Colin there. At trial, prosecutors said Colin wanted a fresh start, free from family rules. He told investigators he feared that if he harmed only his father, his siblings would side against him. On January 22, 2020, Colin was charged as an adult. He faced 4 counts of causing loss of life and 1 count of trying to cause loss of life. He also faced firearm charges. Bail was set at $4 million. He went to a youth detention center. On July 19, 2022, now using his middle name Jeffrey, He pleaded guilty to the 4 counts of loss of life and the count of trying to cause loss of life. The firearm charges were dropped. He gave up his preliminary hearing and quietly accepted the facts. Sentencing took place on July 12, 2023. Prosecutors asked for back-to-back prison terms, pointing to the hours-long planning. His attorney noted that Colin had earned a high school diploma, shown emotional growth, and kept a clean record in detention. The judge imposed 25 years to life for each count of loss of life, to run one after the other, totaling at least 100 years. The sentence for the attempted count runs at the same time. Because he was under 18 at the time, he could not face capital punishment. His father and older brother Danny attended the hearing. The judge expressed hope that Colin would use prison programs to keep improving. At sentencing, Colin, then 20, spoke briefly. "I want you to know I've learned from what I've done. I apologize to my family and the community for the pain and suffering I have caused. I want others to know they can get help for their anxiety." Those were his only significant words. He remains in custody. The next teenager earned awards, played sports, and kept up his grades. But what hid beneath that perfect surface? Nicholas Wagner Browning was born in 1992 in Maryland. He was the oldest of 3 brothers. His father, John W. Browning, worked as an attorney. His mother, Tamara Browning, stayed at home. They lived in a quiet neighborhood in Cockeysville, Baltimore County. Nick went to Delaney High School. He did well in classes. He played golf and lacrosse and earned Eagle Scout honors. His younger brothers were Gregory, 13, and Benjamin, 11. By most accounts, the family seemed friendly. Neighbors saw them at community events. They kept their yard neat. His father led a scout troop. But later, reports showed tension between Nick and his dad. On the night of February 1st, 2008, just before his 16th birthday, Nick returned home late. He found his family asleep. He took his father's 9mm handgun. He shot his father on the living room couch. Then he went upstairs. He used the same weapon on his mother and his 2 brothers while they slept. Afterward, he hid the gun in nearby bushes. Then he went to a friend's house. He played video games for hours. The next day, he invited friends over. He said it would be a party. No one came. His friend drove him back home. Inside, Nick found his father's body. He called 911. When police arrived, they found 4 family members fatally shot. On February 3rd, Nick admitted what he had done. He told officers where to find the handgun. He was held without bail as a public risk. In interviews, Nick said his father had been strict. He spoke of mental and physical discipline at home. He said he wanted freedom from those rules. Prosecutors said Nick planned the acts. They suggested he did it to avoid punishment and to inherit more money. Charged as an adult, Nick stood before a Baltimore County court. In October 2008, he accepted a plea deal. He pled guilty to 4 counts related to the losses. This plea removed the chance of life without parole. On December 2nd, 2008, a judge heard psychiatric testimony. Experts noted physical discipline in the home. They found no formal mental illness. They said Nick reacted with aggressiveness under stress. Wiretaps from jail calls were shared at sentencing. In one call, Nick asked a friend to help him escape. He even joked about breaking out next year. Those comments raised doubts about his remorse. Judge Thomas Bollinger gave Nick 4 life sentences. 2 of those must be served back to back. Under Maryland law, Nick could seek release in 2031 if he shows good behavior. At sentencing, Nick cried. He tried to say sorry. His attorney read part of his apology. He said, "I so badly want to take away your pain." He asked family members for forgiveness. Since arriving in prison, Nick has written to people outside. Victims' relatives worry about those connections. Some family members have asked if he thought he could be tried as a juvenile and walk away. In 2014, a judge denied Nick's request to shorten his sentence. He remains at Western Correctional Institution in Maryland. He first served time at Patuxent, where programs focus on rehabilitation. Inside the prison system, experts note Nick's intelligence and his calm way of talking about what happened, almost as if it was a task. Some say his outlook aligns with traits often linked to antisocial personality disorder. Up next is a beach trip that ended with 5 lives gone, and 1 teenager holding the secret. Mason Wayne Sisk was born in 2005. In September 2019, he lived in Elkmont, a town of about 500 people in northern Alabama. His father, John Wayne Sisk, was 38. His adoptive mother, Mary, was 35. Mason had 3 younger siblings, Kane, 6, Aurora, Rory, 4, and Colson, who was 6 months old. On the outside, the children seemed close, but tensions ran under the surface. After Labor Day weekend, the family came home from a beach trip late at night. Mason took a 9mm handgun from their host's house. While everyone else slept, he crept through each bedroom. He fired the weapon at each family member's head. Early the next morning, all 5 were found lifeless in their beds. When deputies arrived, Mason said he had been in the basement playing video games. He claimed he heard noises and then saw a suspicious vehicle leaving. Investigators noticed parts of his story did not add up. Faced with evidence placing him at the scene, Mason admitted what he had done. He said, "They argue a lot, and I got fed up with it." Investigators then found the hidden weapon nearby. His own words shifted the case from mystery to tragedy. In court, his defense team described him as a tired, confused boy. They said he was worn down by family fights and spoke of tough questioning by police. They asked the court to consider his age, possible misunderstandings, and missing information about phone records, family issues, and DNA on gloves. The prosecution replied with a simple point. Here was a child who planned and targeted 5 sleeping people. They said no mental illness had been shown and no doubt remained about his actions. The first trial ended without a verdict when key phone records surfaced. A second trial in April 2023 took 2 hours of jury discussion. The jury held him responsible for 4 counts of multiple homicides, noting that children had been among the victims. In July 2023, family members spoke in court about the losses they felt. Mary's sister wept as she said she never saw baby Colson alive, only in a small coffin. The judge then imposed the toughest sentence Alabama law allows, life in prison with no chance of release. He called the act horrifying and beyond what we see even in most adult cases. The district attorney labeled Mason one of the most frightening people I have met. He added that U.S. law usually stops short of giving minors the harshest punishments, but this case was an exception. Mason did not speak at sentencing and showed no visible emotion. Because he was under 18 at the time, the court could not impose the harshest penalty. With no chance of release, his sentence is effectively permanent. His lawyers are appealing. They argue that the jury did not learn the full picture of his upbringing and note that his first trial ended without a decision. The events shook Elkmont. Neighbors and first responders say they cannot forget the shocked looks on faces that day. The quiet town has not fully recovered from such a sudden, deep loss. The next teen told police he saw a demon, but the truth was much darker. Before we move on to the next case, consider subscribing to the channel for more stories like this. Paris Lee Bennett was born in 1994. He lived in Abilene, Texas with his mother, Charity Bennett, his 4-year-old half-sister Ella, and other siblings. Experts later noted his IQ was 141. They also found signs of psychopathy and antisocial behavior long before the incident. His mother battled addiction and worked late shifts. On the night of February 4th, 2007, she was at Buffalo Wild Wings. That evening, around 10 p.m., Paris asked the babysitter to leave early, citing a made-up emergency. Once she left, he went into Ella's bedroom. There, he harmed her and struck her 17 times with a kitchen tool. He later said he wanted to hurt his mother's feelings. At about 11:42 p.m., he called emergency services. During that call, he claimed he thought Ella was a pumpkin-headed demon. In his 911 call, Paris paced the room and counted aloud, pretending to perform CPR, as police dispatchers gave instructions. Police arrived and arrested him before 12:30 a.m. In juvenile court, Paris pleaded guilty to taking another person's life. His lawyers presented detailed psychological evaluations showing harmful thoughts dating back to early childhood. The court gave him the maximum juvenile sentence, 40 years in custody, with a chance to apply for early release after 20 years. His first review is scheduled for February 2027. Experts officially diagnosed Paris as a sociopath and noted signs of psychopathy present since childhood. When he turned 19, he was moved to an adult prison to finish his sentence. If he is not granted release at his review, his term will end in February 2047. Joseph Hall was born in 2000 in Riverside, California. He had one sister, Shirley, who was almost his age. Their father, Jeff Hall, later married Krista McCary. Jeff and Krista had 3 more daughters. By 2011, Joseph lived in a crowded home with 5 siblings. His father was strict and held extreme beliefs. Jeffrey Russell Hall was born on November 21, 1978. He rose to become the regional director for a neo-Nazi group in the southwestern United States. He led rallies in World War II-style gear. He patrolled the U.S.-Mexico border. He blamed immigrants and non-white people for society's problems. At home, he shared these views with Joseph. He also taught Joseph to use night vision gear and a .357 revolver. From a young age, Joseph showed signs of emotional trouble. He had developmental challenges, including ADHD and below-average learning ability. He was expelled from at least 6 schools. School records note incidents where he wrapped a phone cord around a teacher's neck or struck another student with a pencil. Life inside the Hall household was harsh. Jeff often struck his children and Krista. Krista later said Jeff would kick Joseph for small mistakes. She also said he once threatened to disable smoke alarms and set the house on fire. The home was dirty and smelled of urine. Clothes piled up everywhere. Weapons sat within easy reach of the children. In the early hours of May 1st, 2011, after a neo-Nazi meeting at their house, Joseph took his father's loaded .357 revolver from a closet. He walked into the living room where Jeff was asleep on the couch. Joseph pressed the gun to Jeff's head. He pulled the trigger. The bullet entered just behind Jeff's left ear. Right after, Joseph told Krista, "I shot Dad." In police questioning, he seemed confused about the consequences. He asked, "How many lives do people usually get?" He said he'd seen a TV show where a child harmed a parent who mistreated them and then was forgiven. He thought the same would happen to him. Joseph was charged as a juvenile with a serious offense. His lawyers said he could not fully understand right from wrong or the impact of giving up his rights. They noted his ADHD, learning challenges, post-traumatic stress, and history of witnessing conflict at home. The prosecution argued Joseph planned the shooting. They pointed out that Joseph had told his sister days earlier that he meant to shoot their father. They said his past acts showed he knew what he was doing. By October 2012, Joseph, then 12, stood trial in juvenile court. Judge Jean Leonard ruled that Joseph understood his actions. The judge cited Joseph's planning and awareness. "The minor knew what he did was wrong," she said. In January 2013, Joseph was found responsible for the shooting. Many felt sorry for his difficult past. Still, the court held him accountable. In November 2013, at age 13, Joseph received a sentence in juvenile detention. He was to remain there until his 23rd birthday, June 19, 2023. He could seek parole after 7 years. Prosecutor Michael Sacchio, who visited Joseph in detention, called him peculiar yet charming and a lost soul. Joseph's team appealed to the California Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court. They questioned whether a 10-year-old could truly understand giving up legal rights or the court system's impact. In 2015 and 2016, both courts declined to review the case, so the original decision stayed in place. This case led California lawmakers to propose a change. They suggested that minors under 18 must meet with a lawyer or guardian before giving up their rights. In 2016, Governor Jerry Brown vetoed that proposal, saying more study was needed. He did agree that the system could use reform. The next teenager was just 12. She was 16, and what happened in that bedroom left everyone searching for answers. Ethan Andrew Austin was born in 2002. He was the younger of 2 children. His half-sister, Caitlin Deborah Chavallo Austin, was about 16 years old. She lived with their mother, Cindy, and their stepfather, Andrew, who was also Ethan's biological father. They all lived on West 3rd Street in the Hanson Park neighborhood of Kennewick, Washington. Ethan was in 6th grade at Desert Hills Middle School. He was shy and polite. He was a Boy Scout and loved camping, hunting, playing golf, and spending time outdoors. Caitlin was a junior at Kamiakan High School. She made the honor roll and played on the softball team. Neighbors said the siblings seemed to get along well. The weekend before the incident, Ethan rode his bike with friends. He also watched Caitlin play softball. He looked relaxed and happy. On June 9th, 2014, a classmate noticed Ethan seemed upset. He was usually talkative, but that day he was quiet and withdrawn. He would not say what was wrong. After school, Ethan went home alone. Caitlin arrived soon after. Inside Caitlin's bedroom, a pistol sat on a table within easy reach. Without warning, Ethan picked up the handgun and fired 8 shots at Caitlin. 5 of those bullets struck her head. She passed away immediately. Then Ethan turned the gun on himself. He fired 1 shot to his own head. Their father found them both in the bedroom. They were gone. The house fell silent. The local coroner, John Hansen, said there was no clear reason for what happened. The autopsy and investigation ruled that Caitlin passed from multiple gunshot wounds and that Ethan's single wound was self-inflicted. Neither child had any substances in their system. Investigators did find some concerning details. Ethan loved guns. He often practiced dry firing with pistols his father owned for a shooting team. A friend said Ethan had grown quieter and stopped playing outside. His mood had darkened as he spent hours on first-person shooter video games. He also cursed more than before. Just days before the event, Ethan learned that Caitlin was his half-sister. They shared the same mother but had different fathers. Some online conversations have suggested that Caitlin may have been harmed in another way before this happened. One person wrote that there were rumors she planned to tell on Ethan. Another said he had acted inappropriately the day before. No official report confirmed these ideas, and no formal records support them. Why did a 12-year-old shoot his sister and then himself? The coroner could not find a motive. Were there warning signs the parents missed? Did easy access to a gun, a change in Ethan's behavior, and the shock of learning about his sister's true relation push him over the edge? Because Ethan passed at the scene, there was no trial. Prosecutors closed the case and labeled it a tragic act by one child toward another, followed by his own self-harm. No charges were filed. In October 2014, the coroner met with the parents and confirmed the findings. No substances, no other suspects, and no unanswered questions in the official report. The next brothers were homeschooled, rarely seen. But what they planned was unthinkable. On the night of July 22, 2015, in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, two brothers, Robert and Michael Bever, turned their family's home into a scene of unimaginable tragedy. Robert was 18 and Michael was 16. They had been homeschooled and rarely left the house. Neighbors remembered a strict upbringing that kept them apart from others. Around midnight, 12-year-old Daniel Bever sensed something was terribly wrong. He dialed 911 to call for help. Deputies were alerted, but arrived too late. Daniel never made it out of his room. Robert Davis Bever was born on September 17, 1996. Michael John Bever was born on November 4, 1998. They grew up in a household with very strict rules. Their parents, David and April Bever, limited any contact with neighbors. The boys only spent time with their siblings. Tension in the house had been rising for years. Robert once said their father dragged him upstairs for leaving a light on. He also said his mother slapped him hard enough to leave a mark. Robert later wondered if these moments pushed them towards something darker. The brothers prepared carefully. They gathered sharp objects, a hatchet, darts, and surgical blades. They put on gear, protective vests, masks, and shin guards. They also set up hidden cameras to record everything. Late that night, they moved in silence through the house. They first found their father, David, who was 54. He suffered over 28 wounds. Their mother suffered at least 48 wounds to her head and arms. Daniel, age 12, was found next. He had been struck 21 times. 7-year-old Christopher had 21 wounds. 5-year-old Victoria had 23 wounds. One by one, each child was cornered. Only 13-year-old Crystal survived. Her throat had been cut, but she managed to cling to life. A toddler named Autumn escaped without a scratch. Afterward, the brothers waited for police. When officers entered, the brothers ran into nearby woods. Deputies tracked them down quickly. Robert was caught holding a sharp tool. Michael was hiding under brush. A red-stained t-shirt linked Michael to Crystal's injuries. In jailhouse notebooks, Michael drew images of people who had carried out similar acts. One short story read, "Once upon a time, there were two brothers named Michael and Robert. They hated their family, so they ended their lives. The end." Robert pleaded guilty in September 2016. He received 5 back-to-back life terms without the possibility of release, plus an added life term. Prosecutors agreed not to seek the harshest sentence to spare the surviving children more trauma. Michael went on trial in April 2018. On May 9th, a jury found him guilty on 5 counts of first-degree charges and 1 count of intending to harm. On August 9th, 2018, the judge handed him 5 life terms in a row and 28 more years for the harm done to Crystal. He would only be eligible for parole after 215 years, an effective life sentence. Even after his conviction, Robert remained aggressive. In July 2019, he used a sharpened object to harm 2 correctional officers. He received additional life terms for that incident. Today, both brothers remain behind bars. Neither will ever walk free again. The next teen said once he started, he couldn't stop. Ronald Butch. Joseph DeFeo Jr. was born in 1951 in Brooklyn, New York. He was the oldest of 5 siblings. His father, Ronald Sr., sold cars and ran a strict Catholic household. His mother, Louise, looked after the home and children. Butch had a troubled childhood. He was often bullied and struggled with anger. As a teenager, he started experimenting with different kinds of illegal substances. He also began carrying a gun. At 17, he was expelled from school. A year later, he worked at his grandfather's car dealership. He spent his pay on illegal substances and weapons. Tension with his father grew. On one occasion, Butch even fired a shotgun at his dad on their farm. Luckily, the gun misfired. One night, Butch returned to the family home at 112 Ocean Avenue with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. He moved through the house in silence. He entered his parents' bedroom first. Over about 15 minutes, he took the lives of all 6 family members while they slept. He shot his father and mother twice each. He then shot his sisters Dawn, 18, and Allison, 13, once each, and his brothers Mark, 12, and John, 9, once each. Investigators found no signs of a struggle or forced entry. The house was oddly quiet. Around 6 a.m., Butch cleaned himself. He threw his red-stained clothes, the rifle, and spent cartridges into a nearby canal. Then he went to work, as if nothing had happened. Hours later, at about 6 p.m., he burst into Henry's bar. He shouted for help, saying he thought his parents had been shot. A patron named Joe Yeeswit and others called 911. During police questioning, Butch first blamed a fictional mob hit by someone he called Louis Fellini. His story fell apart under scrutiny. The next morning, he admitted what he had done. He said that once he started, he couldn't stop. He even showed officers how he moved from room to room with the rifle. Forensic teams recovered the rifle from the canal he had pointed out. Ballistics confirmed it was the same weapon used on every family member. His trial began on October 14, 1975, in Suffolk County. His defense said he was not in his right mind. They cited heavy substance use and claims that he heard voices. A psychiatrist supported these points. The prosecution argued that he understood his actions and that his stories didn't match the facts. The judge called it the worst tragedy Suffolk County had ever seen. On November 21, 1975, the jury found him responsible for taking 6 lives in the second degree. On December 4, 1975, he received 6 back-to-back sentences of 25 years to life. At a parole hearing in 1999, Butch calmly said, "I love my family very much." Those words left many unsettled. Was he showing regret or something else? In later years, he tried to blame his sister Dawn, claiming she was responsible for most of what happened. Those attempts failed. He passed away in prison on March 12, 2021, at age 69. Now, how did a family known for helping others become the center of such horror? Diego Leyva grew up in Belen, New Mexico. He was one of 4 children in a close family. His father, Leonardo Leyva, was 42 and known for fixing cars and helping neighbors. His mother, Adriana Bencomo, was 35 and volunteered as a local firefighter. She was known for her warmth. Diego's siblings, Adrian, 16, his twin sister, and Alexander, 14, were both quiet and kind. Diego, however, struggled with rising emotional pain. Friends say he began to withdraw at school and spend long hours alone. No one saw what was coming. On December 14, 2024, at about 3:30 a.m., Diego made a shocking 911 call. He said, "I harmed my parents and my whole family." He slurred his words. He sounded as if he'd been drinking heavily. When officers arrived at the Camino Escondido home, Diego walked out with his hands raised. He was clearly under the influence. Inside, his father Leonardo, his mother Adriana, and his siblings Adrian and Alexander were found unresponsive. Each had been struck by gunfire. A firearm lay on the kitchen table. Investigators charged Diego with causing the loss of 4 lives. They debated what drove him: severe mental distress, teenage anger, or addiction-fueled delusion. They noted how intoxicated he was when they arrived. Diego told them he heard urges, maybe voices, pushing him to act. Still, no clear motive emerged. Diego was taken to the Juvenile Justice Center in Albuquerque after a medical detox. Soon after, a grand jury indicted him on 4 serious charges. The prosecution said the planning and severity called for an adult trial. The defense said his intoxication and possible mental illness made him less responsible. They pointed to his talk of being controlled by something else and his blurred memory of that night. By spring 2025, the juvenile court agreed he would face trial as an adult. Experts conducted evaluations of his mental state and reviewed his detox records. In summer 2025, a jury found Diego responsible on all counts. They based their decision on ballistics tests of the kitchen firearm and his own 911 call. Under New Mexico rules, he received a life sentence with a chance of parole after 30 years. His youth and mental health were part of that decision. At his sentencing, Diego spoke softly. "I'm sorry, I don't remember much, but I wish I could fix it." The next teen seemed calm, polite, and faithful until the night no one saw coming. Nehemiah Griego was born in 1997. He grew up in Albuquerque's South Valley. He was the 7th of 10 children. His family practiced Christianity. His dad, Greg, used to belong to a gang but later became a pastor and prison chaplain. His mom, Sarah, homeschooled the children and helped with church work. Nehemiah played sports well. He also played guitar and drums at church. He even joined his father on mission trips to Mexico. On the night of January 19, 2013, after a serious argument at home, Nehemiah took 2 rifles from his parents' closet. He had a .22 caliber Marlin and a .223 caliber Sisk Sauer AR-style semi-automatic rifle. He first shot his mother, Sarah, while she was sleeping. He then used the same rifle on his 9-year-old brother, Zephaniah. After that, he shot his 2 sisters, Jael, 5, and Angelina, 2. He waited until early morning. Then he shot his father, Greg, 4 times when his dad came home from work at a shelter for people without housing. After those shootings, Nehemiah reloaded the rifles. He also put ammo in the family van. Later, he said he planned to go to a store, harm strangers, and face police. Instead, he drove to Calvary Albuquerque Church. There, he told people about an accident and walked around calmly. Witnesses said he seemed calm. He only showed emotion when he talked about his favorite graphic, action-heavy video games. When church security and a retired detective spoke with him, he admitted what he had done. Nehemiah faced charges related to ending the lives of 2 adults and 3 children. In October 2015, he pleaded guilty. At first, the court looked into whether he should be treated as a juvenile. If so, he would be released at 21. In February 2016, one judge agreed he could be treated as a juvenile. Prosecutors disagreed and appealed. After several judges stepped aside, the case moved back to adult court. In August 2019, Judge Alyssa Hart decided he could not be helped by juvenile programs. She said he must face adult punishment. On November 1, 2019, Nehemiah, then 22, spoke to his surviving siblings and other family members. He said he was sorry and wished he could undo what happened. He said he had no wish for others to seek revenge. He said he loved his family and hoped they could heal. Judge Hart said releasing him early was too risky. She gave him 3 life sentences to run at the same time, plus extra years, with credit for about 2,476 days already served. He will be able to ask for parole only after 30 years when he turns 52. Nehemiah appealed again. He argued his sentence was too harsh and that his lawyer did not do enough. On June 16, 2022, the New Mexico Supreme Court upheld the sentence. It said he did not prove he would get proper help as a juvenile and that his lawyer's work was adequate. He will remain eligible for parole at age 52. Up next, hidden bodies. Stolen cash, a teenage secret. Nikita Cassup was a 17-year-old who lived with his mother, Tatiana Cassup, and his stepfather, Donald Mayer, in Waukesha County, just outside Milwaukee. Tatiana and Nikita were born in Moldova. It's not clear when they came to the U.S. Nikita went to Waukesha West High School and almost never missed a day, until mid-February 2025, when he simply stopped attending. Neighbors said the family seemed calm and quiet. There was no sign of trouble. Tatiana and Nikita were close. He had lived with her since he was little. Donald became his stepfather about 9 years ago when he married Tatiana. The home gave no hint of conflict. At school, Nikita was polite and well-behaved. Then some troubling notes started to surface. Investigators believe that around February 11th, 2025, Nikita used a gun to end his parents' lives. He stayed in the house with their bodies for nearly 2 weeks. Authorities say he did this to get money, passports, a car, and the freedom to carry out a destructive plan. He used a Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum owned by Donald. Spent casings matched that gun. Tatiana was found wrapped in blankets in a hallway, with a bullet wound in her back near her right shoulder. Donald was found in his home office with a bullet wound to his head. A grim detail. Nikita stayed in the house as the bodies began to decompose. He lit candles around them. He even kept up with schoolwork and sent messages from one of their phones. By February 28th, when a welfare check was done, decomposition was well advanced. That same day, he left in Donald's VW Atlas. He took about $14,000 in cash, the family's small black dog, passports, Idaho cards, and over 70 pieces of jewelry. He drove through Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Colorado, and Wyoming. In Waukene, Kansas, he was pulled over for running a stop sign. Inside the vehicle were the dog, a pistol, ammunition, jewelry, laptops, and IDs. Why did he do it? The FBI affidavit says Nikita wanted the money and freedom to act on extremist beliefs and disrupt the government. On his phone, agents found extremist writings, guides on making dangerous devices, and content linked to radical groups. Messages on social media revealed he planned to use a drone and acquire dangerous materials. He also spoke with contacts overseas about leaving the country. A classmate said he had told her days earlier, "I intended to end my parents' lives with a gun but did not have access to one." On March 1st, Nikita was arrested in Kansas. He was first charged with theft and using a vehicle without permission. On March 27th, Waukesha County added charges. 2 counts of first-degree intentionally taking a life, 2 counts of hiding a body, theft over $10,000, and identity fraud. A preliminary hearing was held on April 9th, and his bail was set at $1 million. He pleaded not guilty on May 7, 2025. Federal charges, covering conspiracy, planning harm, and weapons violations, are also pending. As of June 27, 2025, the case has not gone to trial. Nikita remains in custody, and no verdict or sentence has been issued.